State pension in the UK has raised from 65 to 66 and is soon to go up again from 66 to 67 in 2026. At this rate, many of us are thinking we will never be able to retire. Now, if you watch this video, I'll show you how you can actually retire if you work smart about this. But if you don't watch this video, you will be working until you drop. I'm going to cover what pensions are, how they work, why the problem is worse than anyone thinks, and what you can do to protect yourself against this. So to start off, we need to take a look at the pension scheme and how it all works. I want you to say it with me: pensions are Ponzi schemes. Now, they're not actually Ponzi schemes, but they kind of are. The dictionary definition of a Ponzi scheme: an enterprise which is fostered by the payment of quick returns to the first investors from money invested by later investors. Basically, people who are already in the system or the scheme, the Ponzi scheme, they are getting paid by people who are just joining, and those people are hoping that they'll get paid from people who are just joining. Pensions actually work in a very similar way. People who are working are paying a national insurance tax. This is the NI tax, part of your paycheck you've seen that you all look forward to seeing. This tax that you pay goes directly from you to the government. It goes from the government to any pensioners who qualify for the state pension. Now, it gets a bit tricky on who qualifies, but basically if you pay national insurance for more than 10 years, you will start to qualify, and if you paid for 30 years, you will qualify for the full amount, which is currently £203.85 per week per person. So now you understand what pensions are. What is the issue with all of this? Well, it stems from the OADR. Basically, it's the old age dependency ratio. It's the ratio between people who are young and working and able to work and people who are 66 and above, currently 66 and above. It's not a perfect metric. There are a lot of issues with it. People who are underemployed or can't work who are in working age, and people who are 66 and above who still work. But as a general rule, it's the ratio between retired people and young people. This is a fascinating chart from the ONS which shows the relationship between how many people are which age and split by gender. As a general rule, our society is set up so that you younger people are paying for your older people. Young people will take care of the older people, so it's basically like a rotation. As you get too old, young people who have come in will now support you as you've had a lot of productive years in society. The major issue that's happening is that most developed countries in the world are suffering from an aging population. There are not enough young people being born to support the amount of old people and people getting older. A great statistic I saw was for every 100 South Koreans that currently are right now, there will be 4 great grandbabies. See where this issue starts to stem from. As birth rates decline even more so, you'll have more people are getting older and less people to take care of them. If you look back at 1966, there are a lot of young people and there are not that many old people, so the support system is pretty easy. But as you look to 2016 and the projection that they did at 2066, you will see there's a huge imbalance. I've drawn a line in red so you can see the 65-year age difference. To add fuel to the fire, not only is this happening, not only are we having less young people, the people who are getting older are staying alive for longer. The average age expectancy for someone in the UK is 80.9 years. The government has also helped put fuel to this fire by basically implementing this scheme, which is mind-blowing that it's even possible. It's basically called the triple lock system. The triple lock is the system the government uses to raise the pension payout. This would mean as everything gets more expensive, their pension payout rises the same. So you're not gaining any money, but you're not losing anything to inflation. Otherwise, we'd have a bunch of old pensioners trying to fish out Freddos for 9p. Triple lock system is more stupid than that though. They have 3 areas they can either pull the payment up. It's either through inflation, it's either 2.5%, or it's the average increase in wages, whichever is largest. So if wages didn't increase more than 2.5%, pensioners would get a bigger pay rise than you did. So what the government is basically saying here is that we're pushing the age you can get this retirement later and later, and the people who currently have it, we're paying them out more. Maybe thinking, why are they increasing the payment more than inflation? It's because they want to get votes. The government knows that the UK is an aging population. 21 million people are over the age of 50. That's about 38% of the population of the UK are over 50. And about 1 in 5 are over 65. Again, kind of qualifying for this pension thing. So they want to vote for people who are going to get them the most money out of their pensions. The crazy part is the government spends 12.2% of their entire budget on retiree pensions. And if you lump in their spending on the healthcare system, that's another 18%, which is basically 30%. Now, I know that not all pensioners will be using, or all people using the NHS are pensioners, but it's a vast majority of the people using it will be pensioners, or at least over the age of 50. Roughly 30% of the government spending is on pensioners, and this is just on the healthcare and the retirees' pension. Now, if you raise the goalpost, you basically make it so that more people are in work and less people are retired, because you're just moving it further up, so these people have to work longer. This is what a study found. Basically, people born after 1970, they'll need to raise the retirement age to 71 by 2050 if they want to keep the right ratio of OADR from younger people to people retired. There's been, at current, no studies done on people born after 2000, but I'm going to tell you now, it's not going to look great for you. What's the solution? Because this is looking pretty grim at the moment. Wow. You can subscribe to the channel. I take your life savings and I would bet it on red. No, I'm joking. On the larger scale, on the macro view, there are loads of different policy changes that we could potentially implement, but I don't have much faith in that, and it'll probably be too little too late. But frankly, I'd rather focus on you and I and see how we can protect our money and our time in retirement. The main thing is you need to start taking action today. Retirement, I know it may seem like a long time off, but is super key and makes it much easier the earlier you start. Basically, what the plan is to build your own pension pot that funds your own retirement, so you're not paying into anyone else's pocket. To do that, you're going to need two things. You're going to need a special account and a compound interest vehicle. What I'm going to need you to do is open up a stocks and shares ISA. You can use Trading 212. It's one of the ones I use. It's just a brokerage. It's pretty user friendly and it's used by a lot of people. It's pretty good. A stocks and shares ISA is an ISA, which is basically it's a tax advantage account in the UK that you can use and basically have stocks and shares within inside. If you don't have an ISA account already or a stocks and shares ISA account already, go into the description. There'll be a link. First one, Trading 212. If you click that, you'll have to sign up and do everything, but it'll give you a free share to start you off. So that is your special step one special account made. Step two is you're going to need a vehicle, a compound interest vehicle that's going to take you from where you're at right now to retirement. S&P 500 is a collection basically of 500 of the most productive companies in the US, and it tracks all of their pricing. You buy one share of the S&P, you are buying loads of little bits of those 500 companies. The reason we use this is because on average over the last 100 years the S&P has returned 10.54%. This is backed up by research we've seen inside of ISAs for the last 10 years. People have been getting anywhere roughly on the average of 9.6%. S&P is the vehicle we're going to use because you're going to get roughly on average 10.54%. That is not your real rate of return. That's the ideal one, but there's inflation that comes and eats a bit of that away. So that is roughly, I think Bank of England likes to target 2%. Now, currently interest rates are much higher than that, but pre-COVID they were much lower than it is now. So on average, over the entire thing, it will be about 2%. So in real terms, your actual return on investment is going to be 8% conservatively. Keep in mind as well, the younger you start this plan that I'm going to share with you now, the easier it'll be, and you have never been younger than right now. So today, right now, start this plan. I'm going to break this down by age, assuming you want to retire at 65 and you're going to live to be around 85. So we're going to assume that you're retiring at 65, you're going to live to be 85. Now, you want to spend $2,700 a month. The reason we've picked that number is basically that's what the UK household on average spends per month. So 2,700 is the goal number we want to be able to withdraw from our account to be able to pay for everything. So assuming that you're 21 years old and you have nothing, no money, nothing, you're starting from absolute zero. You get your 8% from the S&P 500. You live another 44 years until retirement. So this is all the work you're going to be putting in is 44 years until you can retire. Now, what you need to contribute is £200 per month. So as soon as you get paid, you put the £200 a month away. If you do this for the next 44 years, so if you do that and you do that consistently, you will reach the number 893,000 when you retire at 65. That will allow you to withdraw £2,700. Remember, this is all in today's money because inflation is already taken into account here. Your real, well, but if you took out inflation, would be 10%, but we're using 8 to account for inflation. So that's in today's money. That's how much you'd be worth. And you'll be withdrawing 2,700. Now remember, this 2,700 figure is a household, so I'm assuming that it's you and a partner living in a household. So this is almost two people's income. So this number here, so this £200 could be two people contributing to it. So if you can't do £200, but you can do 100 and your partner can do 100, you can both still get this £200 figure, which will get you this figure here. Now, let's say you move up in age. You're now 30 years old and you have nothing. So you now only actually have 35 more years until you're 65. So 35 years means that you have to now actually invest 400 a month. Remember, this can be split between two people. But if you do this, you will then get to the figure of 862,000, which is the figure again we need. We need to be basically anywhere above 810,000, and any more gives you a bit more cushion. Now, this is where being younger helps so much more because now that's £400 a month you have to do for the next 35 years. That's double what the 21-year-old had to do. Now, if you're 40, you only have 25 years, which means you actually have to invest £900 a month starting, well, pretty much from today onwards until you're 65 to get to that number. 900, again, that can be split between two people, but that's a heavy amount to spend. But honestly, I would hope that when you're 30 and 40, if you are currently 30 and 40 and watching this video, that you have some sort of private pension that will be contributing. So you won't actually be starting from zero. You may be starting from, you know, say like 50,000 or something, if that's what's in your pension, or roughly, I'm just taking it as an average. You would only actually have to spend, I think it's about 600-ish. There you go, yeah. So you can see that having that really drops down that monthly spend. And then honestly, if you're over the age of 40, then your chances are you've probably got a private pension and you probably will see some of the state pension. But if you are under 40, you probably won't, let's be honest. What happens if you want to retire earlier than 65? Well, it kind of depends on two main things: how much you spend and how long you plan on being retired for. The general rule of thumb is you take the amount that you are going to spend in retirement, you times that by 12 to get your yearly amount. So the monthly amount now is the yearly amount, times it by 25 to get your current value that you need to have. For example, say you're 20 years old and you've got 10 grand saved up. You're looking at retirement at 35 years old. You take the 2.7k figure we used earlier on, say you're spending that per month, times that by 12, times that by 25, it leaves you with 810k you need to have invested by the age of 35. 35 is a young retirement because you'll be living potentially to be 85, so that's a long time. So you want to times that also by 1.2 to 1.5, depends on how risky you want to take it, and that's your number of retirement. Now, this will differ for different people depending on the age and everything like that and when you want to retire, but that's a general rule of thumb you can use. I did want to make this a really positive video, but it's hard to do that sometimes when you look at the way the state of the pensions are going. But I wanted to also mention a couple other things that you need to be investing in or looking out for. I've spoken about the financial side of investing so that you can have a pot of money and you can basically have that as your like safety net and you can live off of that in your own retirement. You don't have to depend on anyone else. There's other factors around, and I'd highly recommend you invest in your health and your youth. Wear sunscreen, eat well, move, exercise, stuff like that. Stuff you should be doing, and maybe you are doing it or maybe you're not doing it, but you should start, because if you're going to start retiring and you want to be able to get to those years, 50% of people over the age of 70 are disabled. It'll help boost your quality of life overall, so not only while you're working but also in retirement, and allow you to get to that end point that you want to get to. Invest in a gym membership and go 3 times a week. Doing these things are almost just as important as investing, and in fact investing is probably the easiest part of this. Once you set up the account, you set up all the auto invest and you find your number you need to invest, it's almost an afterthought. You don't really have to think about it that much. So start that bit today. If you don't have an ISA already, go to the link, get that Trading 212 account and open your ISA. It'll give you a free share. You can sell that and invest that into the S&P. Also, just a note as well, if you're a parent or you're having a child at some point in the future or plan on, if you do the Bill Ackman strategy, which is basically, he says you put $7,000 in an account for them when they're born and you don't touch it, you leave it. And it gets to about 20 years old. If they start making those contributions, they can retire much earlier. If you have the funds and you are looking that far ahead, you can save your children or potential children so much heartache in the future if you can just do this. Put it in an account, put it in the S&P, let it compound to that 8% that we've been talking about. And then when they get to an age they can start contributing to it, they will have to contribute very negligible amounts and they will have a secure retirement when they get to that point. That's all I've got for this video. If you like this video, subscribe so you can see more things that I make in the future.